Hey y'all, my name's Megan. I'm a homeschool mama too, and welcome to my channel. Do you guys see that I'm like actually being able to wear my cozy little sweater now? In my fall read alouds video, I had to take it off because it was still like blazing hot around here, and we're finally starting to get into those nice cool temperatures. The leaves are actually changing, so I am feeling all the fall time feelings. Anyways, I digress. In today's video, we are going to be talking about the oh wait, I got my nails painted. I'm gonna face them this way. The 5 things that we do not do in our homeschool. One of the things that I love so much about homeschool is the diversity of choices and styles that are available when you make the decision to really educate your children at home. And the reason that I'm actually making this video is because I really hope that by telling you guys the 5 things that we don't do in our homeschool kind of gives maybe some of you guys permission out there to stop trying to do all of the things, because everything that I'm going to mention today that are 5 things that we no longer do, they are things that we have done. And it may actually be some stuff that we might try again later, but for right now, in this season of our homeschool, they just don't work for us. And I also want to say that everything that we are going to mention, there are things that I think hold merit, that have value, but they just haven't worked for us. It's like that Amy Poehler quote of like, good for you, just not for me, right? And I love that about homeschool too, that I could get onto YouTube or Instagram and see what all of you awesome home educators are doing and all of the really cool stuff and ideas that you guys have going on. But you know what? It's not all one size fits all. It's not one size fits all. Oh my goodness. So anyways, let's get into the 5 things that we don't do in our homeschool. The first thing I want to mention that we do not do in our homeschool is the morning basket. And there's also some different variations on this that are kind of going around, but we just don't do it. So if you were not familiar, a morning basket can be a lot of things, but in general, it's like a basket that you put things in that all of your kiddos can do together in your homeschool. And generally speaking, people use this as a way to start their day. So it might be a place that you could do an art study or sing songs or read a chapter out of a read aloud that you guys are all doing together. Maybe it's when you talk about month and date and time and weather and all of that business. I've even seen people out there who are rock stars doing things like meditation practice during that morning basket time. And that's all well and good. We had our little morning basket. We attempted our little morning basket, and I'm going to tell you, it was really an epic failure for us. Now, I have a 7-year-old and a 2-year-old. She's almost 3. So there's a pretty good age difference between the 2 of my girls. And quite frankly, it just was not working out. Our days, number one, they're not uniform enough to have like this starting time, this routine thing that we're going to do. And on top of that, like in the mornings, I gotta tell you, I feel like I'm a strong-willed lady and I am raising 2 very strong-willed little girls. And together having us in the house, it's just like we all like to do our own thing in the morning, and kind of having this checklist item of the morning basket hanging over us was just, it was intense. It didn't feel natural. It didn't feel like a good start to our day. And it always just kind of felt forced. And that I was more excited about purchasing things for our morning basket than actually doing our morning basket. Okay, the second thing that we do not do in our homeschool is that we do not avoid screens. Dun, dun, dun. And I have to tell you, this is a big evolution for our family. We fluctuate on this a lot, or at least we have over the last several years. We've had times where we have no TV at all. We have times where it's this very monitored screen time activity. And now we've just kind of come to this place where I feel like we're finally making technology work for us and work in our homeschool, that I just don't have that same sort of repulsion or avoidance of screens as I once did. Now, honestly, my time as a public school teacher was really the big push for me to say, "Oosh, like no screens whatsoever," because it was true that the students in my classrooms were just, for lack of a better term, addicted to their cell phones. And it was very difficult to get them to move out of that technology space into any sort of like human interaction. And so I think because of that fear, I had really avoided that, or I was like, we're gonna be the no screen in the woods 24/7 family. And it just didn't work out. I think what I've really realized is that as a society or as a system, public education is not doing such a hot job of teaching kids how to utilize technology, what the sort of ethics and manners around technology are. And also, I mean, who's to say maybe their days are just so kind of intense that yeah, they are turning towards that technology is actually just an emotional and mental release, right? The other thing is there are so many amazing programs out there that I think to totally cut ourselves off from screens would be a huge disadvantage for my children. Not only do we really enjoy our academic programs that we use with our computers, but we also just love gaming, and it has been such a great thing for our family and also for my 7-year-old as well. I mean, it's really taught her endurance and problem solving and grit, like sticking with itness. And it's turned into something that I just think we really enjoy. And so what we have found is it's not this and or situation. You don't have to be this family that is like the techno savvy homeschooling family, right? Like you guys know those people, the ones that always have the latest and greatest, the kids know how to do everything, da da da. You don't have to be there, okay? But you also don't have to just be like living in the sticks with absolutely no technology or screens whatsoever. You can do both. We are a family that spends a significant amount of time in the forest, and we also spend a significant amount of time on screens separate and together. And honestly, it's been a very enriching experience for my family. I will defend this position. All right, the third thing that we do not do in our homeschool is that we do not adhere to any strict schedule or routine. And I guess and another way to state that is that we do not attempt to recreate school at home in any way, shape, or form. I know there are so many kiddos out there that so respond to that, and that's just like what you gotta do, or maybe that's y'all's jam, and that's awesome. I love seeing it. More power to you. It is just not for us. First of all, if I overplan, I become like a crazy person. Like my to-do list seems to take on more importance than my kiddos or the relationships that I'm trying to foster with them. I start to force workbook pages. I start to force things because honestly, that part of me wants to get everything checked off the list. And plus, our days are so varied, which to me is the beauty of homeschool. We may have a friend call us and want to go mushroom hunting or go for a hike. We can also have family visitors, all of those things that would make it really hard for me to want to stick to any specific schedule. Like I said, I've tried everything that I'm listing off today, and we tried strict schedules, we tried strict routines, and my kids flourish when we have more of a rhythm, when they know what's coming, so they're not just in this constant kiddo state of like, what are we doing today? Where are we going, right? They have that general idea, but it isn't just 8 a.m. this, 9 a.m. this. It's definitely more of a flow. Number 4, or the fourth thing that we don't do in our homeschool, is we do not adhere to any particular homeschooling dogma or tenets. And I would argue that that is probably true for almost any and all secular homeschoolers, and probably a lot of faith-based homeschoolers as well. Now, just by the title of secular homeschool, you should note that we do not follow any curriculum that might be faith-based. We don't have any faith-based models or tenets that are finding their way into our homeschool. We also don't follow any specific dogma for homeschooling or any specific style, right? We're not strictly Charlotte Mason, or we're not strictly Waldorf, or we're not strictly classical, and we're definitely not strictly unschoolers. And anytime there is a dogma, I'm already very suspicious of that to begin with, because I think that anyone out there who's like trying to tell me that they have the magic cure, the silver bullet for what's going to make my homeschool perfect, I'm very suspicious of that, because that individual's never met my kids or my family. Like, there isn't anyone out there who has just answered all of the mysteries of parenthood. And by extension, there's no one out there who's just answered all of the problems that you may have in your individual homeschool. It's work. It's an evolving thing that's constantly changing, right? And I actually think that there are a lot of groups out there who may adhere to certain homeschool practices that preach a lot of inclusivity, and I have found that it's kind of like anything but. Anybody been on Facebook groups before? Like, I'm on a couple of unschoolers Facebook pages because I really like a lot of that sort of philosophy, go with the flow. Now, don't get me wrong, we have curriculum for every subject, so it isn't something that in our marrow we feel is right for us, but it's definitely something that we flow in and out of, or take some sort of advice from. And you go in there and mention a workbook, you better be ready to defend yourself, because everybody is coming for you. Oh, well, you're not an unschooler. That is just not productive, you guys. It's also just unkind, and I don't care for it. So I really like to be a part of communities where we're all recognizing what we all bring to the table, and maybe just being inspired or encouraged by the different styles we see, even if they just aren't for us. And number 5, the 5th thing, look at my nails, got them painted. The 5th thing that we do not do in our homeschool is that we do not test or assess. And I know that seems pretty simple to say now because my oldest is only 7, but it is something that I'm pretty firm on is not going to be for us, and that is formal testing and assessment. A lot of this does come from my experience as being a public school teacher, but also a public school student, where I took standardized testing every year, and the exams were always poorly written, ill-phrased, felt irrelevant to the information that I had learned that year. And you know what? The testing and assessment is never for children. It is always for adults, or it always has some sort of political or financial motivation. It's never really for the children. And I can attest to that too from the public school teacher side. It's not as if we ever got that information in a time, or those test results in a timely manner, to assist a child in anything that they may have found as a gap, right? That always came way too late for us. I also think that there's always a very bizarre oxymoron in the language that we use, or the rhetoric that we use around testing for kids. There always seems to be this thing that, like, oh, we want kids to learn at their own rate. Of course, obviously, right? Specialized, individualized education. However, they then seem to be expected to meet some sort of like standard for first grade, second grade, whatever it is, right? It's always like, let's make this specialized education. Oh, but by the end of the year, you need to be here. Go at your own pace, but make sure by May you're right here. But please do as you will, but you need to be right here, right? It doesn't make sense. It's a tug of war in which nobody is winning, and it's just seems nonsensical. I can say that as well. with the advantage of I teach in a state where there are very little regulations, and so my kids don't have to take any sort of test or assessment. What I do for my 7-year-old is I do keep books for each of our subjects so that we can look at her work over time. So for example, her spelling book, which is also her handwriting book, I will date our practices, and over time we can see those advancements and achievements. And as a matter of fact, we were reflecting on that this week, and I could see that she really needed help with her G's and her lowercase a's. And so that's something that I can go in and work on with her almost immediately. Like, the problem is recognized and then I can correct it. And I feel like there's merit and value in that. Now, you guys know that I'm a homeschooler, and this video is aimed at home educators, so I'm sure that most, if not 100% of you guys watching this are home educators. So I don't really have to share this bit with you guys. However, it was just one of the most alarming things I had ever come across as my time as a public school teacher, so I just wanted to share it with you guys as well. The other reason that tests and assessments in a standardized way, in a broad standardized way, really bother me is because I've yet to come across a test that I felt like was valid or without bias. So for example, one of my first years of teaching, I was helping a student who was an immigrant from Nepal. Now, he migrated when he was very young, so his English was incredibly fluent, and he could read on grade level. But when he went to go take reading comprehension exams, he would always come back showing that he had little to no reading comprehension, which really puzzled me. So I sat down and took one of the exams with him, a practice exam, to see what was really going on. So in the practice exam that I took with him, the piece that we read was a nonfiction piece about bats, but all of the questions related the nonfiction bit about bats to Dracula, which is something that in pop culture for Western children was very obvious. But because he was an immigrant and only spent his time in school and then goes home to family and his culture is from Nepal, that was a very unknown story for him. So to relate those things in the exam made it look as if he had no reading comprehension, when in reality the test itself was written with this overwhelming Western bias. And I've seen that in almost all of the exams I've ever given. It's just not a true assessment of skill or progress. And I know there's a difference between tests that you might give at the end of a unit versus standardized exams. But for us, because we are homeschooling such a one-on-one, I just don't need that test. I just don't need that grade because I'm assessing every day. I'm assessing at the end of every lesson, and I'm giving meaningful feedback. Oh, you guys, that's such a throw around word in public schools. Meaningful feedback right away to my students, aka my children. Now, as they get older, we will of course prepare our kids for the concept of exams and tests, because if they choose to go to college or if they choose to get any sort of licensing, then they're going to need to pass exams, right? But I also think that one of the biggest problems that we have with exams and testing anxiety isn't solved by more exams. That only exasperates the issue. All right, you guys, this was a super fun, quick video to make. I really enjoyed kind of thinking back on what it is that we don't do in a way that I could formalize it for you. Please comment below. Let me know what you guys don't do in your homeschool. Hopefully by me telling you the things that I've let go of, gives you a little bit more encouragement to really sink into and feel confident with your homeschooling choices and what works for your family. Okay, is it done? Yeah, baby. I'm going out of order again. Let me start over. Is it perfect? No, baby, and it was never gonna be. But is it done? Yeah, for today, okay? So until next time, bye! Enjoy your fall. Enjoy spooky season.